Okay, so I saw this post on Twitter and I said, are you team long or short album? And so this kind of opened the discussion for me to talk about what is the perfect length for an album and how many songs are best on it, and kind of give some examples. Really quickly giving my thoughts on these albums pictured here. So Oliviarodrigo Guts, I think that this is her best album. I think she improved from Sour. We had more up-tempos. All American Bitch was a great way to open the album. Vampire is the ballad that we really needed. Bad Idea Right is just fun to listen to. I love stuff like Making the Bed, for example. So there was a lot to like on this album, in my opinion. I think she improved as a songwriter and a vocalist, and I like the production here more than the first album. I think that it'll age a little bit better. Arianagrande, Eternal Sunshine. Yep, short and sweet, short and sweet. No skips on this album, no skips on this album. And so some of my favorite songs on here are The Boy Is Mine, excellent. And Supernatural is just like the dopamine hit that keeps on giving. I also enjoy Don't Want to Break Up Again. I really like the intro. That's always been one of my favorites on this album. I feel like it is a tad bit underrated, but I think that this is a really good album. No skips for me. And then Billie Eilish's new album, Hit Me Hard and Soft. I think it's a good album for the most part. I think I gave it, what, 7 out of 10? And so I keep going back to the same 2 songs, though. Lunch, which is just a bop. It's so catchy. I think it's clever with the lyrics. And then I also really enjoyed Birds of a Feather. It's those 2 songs that they keep going back to. And like I said, there is a problem for me with the mixing and mastering. Like, this album's not loud enough. Why do I have to turn my phone up basically the whole way to hear it? I think that that was a failure on their part, and I can't believe that they still haven't fixed it. For the long albums, first up, we got Nicki Minaj, Pink Friday 2. I have not listened to this album. I don't plan to listen to this album, so I can't comment on it. Taylor Swift, and this is going to be the Tortured Poets Department anthology. And so 31 songs is ridiculous. She could have cut this down to 21 songs at best. I haven't revisited this album in weeks. I'm supposed to review it for YouTube, and other stuff keeps coming up, and I'm not really looking forward to it, so it keeps getting delayed. But eventually I will review it. And so some of my favorite songs, I really enjoyed Peter. The Alchemy was a great track on this album as well, and So Long London. I just feel like a lot of this album feels kind of like filler, or just feels like songs that are just watered down versions of what she's already done great before. And so this is the album people think Taylor's been making the whole time. Not horrible, not outstanding, but it is a disappointment, kind of to wrap up my thoughts succinctly, and I'll go in later detail on YouTube at some point, I promise. Last up, we got Beyonce, Cowboy Carter. This is carrying the long album team on its back. Some of my favorite songs, I absolutely love Bodyguard. It's so much fun to listen to. I love the guitars on there. Vocals are excellent. I like the lyrics. It just has a really great groove to it. American Requiem is an excellent opener on this album. Yaya, I mean, it's just so much fun to listen to. It's really for the B-Day girlies, in my opinion. Daughter is absolutely amazing on this album as well. I like her cover of Blackbird a lot. So I really enjoy Cowboy Carter, and I think that's the best album on all these. In terms of my perfect length for an album, I would honestly say 12 through 15 tracks, maybe 16 if I really do like the album. And so I think that this is just the best way to keep the listener engaged, and also to keep your thoughts succinct, because a lot of times whenever you're having so many songs, a lot of songs kind of fall into the same boat, whether it's the sentiment, whether it's the production. And so I think it's just important to kind of pare it down to your best stuff, because as an artist, I'm sure you have many songs you do, but you can definitely listen back and be like, this is one of the best songs it has to be on. This isn't. And sometimes, you know, people can convince you, and some songs don't make the album that ultimately should have, and we learn that years later. But as the artist, you can pare it down, right? And so a great album that is 12 to 15 tracks is going to be Mariah Carey, Butterfly, and this is only 12 songs. So I could basically list out the entire album for you. Some of my favorites on here that I really enjoy. I absolutely love Butterfly, the song. A very powerful song with the vocals, and she's saying she wishes that, you know, Tommy would have said to her what this song says, saying, spread your wings and prepare to fly, for you have become a butterfly. And yeah, it's just an excellent song. I love the bridge. I love the background singers. Her main vocal is outstanding. And 4th of July is a gorgeous piece, especially if you listen to that acapella and her vocal layering on there. Chef's Kiss, she absolutely ate. Breakdown featuring Crazy Bone and Wishbone of both notes in harmony. She really adapted to their cadence. And it's just a super enjoyable song to listen to overall, so it definitely has to be up there. Outside, she wrote this about being biracial. As someone who's biracial myself, it's definitely something that I can really relate to and appreciate as well. Honey is a really fun way to open up this album. I quite enjoy it. Baby Doll, what an excellent piece. What an excellent piece that this song is. Oh, she absolutely ate. So those are just some of my favorites, but the album is outstanding. Harry's House, Harry Styles. I play this album out. I really did. It's such a good album. Some of my favorite songs. Daylight's my favorite song on the album. So much fun to listen to. And I also really quite enjoyed Matilda on this album. It's kind of depressing to listen to, but I think that he pulled off the song really well. Late Night Talking is just so infectious to listen to. Music for a Sushi Restaurant, a really great way to open up this album. Keep Driving, I really enjoyed. So those are just some of my favorites. But yeah, the weaker songs in this, Cinema and Daydreaming, but they haven't become skips for me yet. And so this is an album that is aged really well. I like his production choices, I like his vocals, I like his songwriting. And so definitely one of my favorite albums of that year for sure. Taylor Swift 1989 is another great example of this. Some of my favorite songs on this, Wildest Dreams is incredible, Blank Space is a smash hit that kept on giving. I really like Shake It Off. I know a lot of people don't go up for it, but I mean, it's a banger to me. Did What Had to Be Done, still like it to this day. I Know Places is one of Taylor Swift's underrated songs by the general public. I would say it's always been one of my favorites. I think there's something that's so cool about it. And I also really love Clean as well. But I mean, smash hit, She Did What Had to Be Done, one of the greatest pop albums of all time. Aretha Franklin, Spirit in the Dark, 12 songs, and so she wrote like half the songs in this album. She played piano on most of it. Her vocals, absolutely incredible. Some songs that I really loved off of this album, Spirit in the Dark, the song, just the feel that it had to it, that intro, and just like the transition into the faster part of the song. Yeah, Aretha is one of the greatest to ever do it, and it's because of choices like that she does. And so I really like that piece on the album. You and Me, I think that this is a gorgeous song. Oh No, Not My Baby, I like the groove and the feel that it has to it a lot, actually. Pullin', I think, is an underrated song off of this record. Try Maddie's, I really enjoyed that one as well. Her cover of Don't Play That Song, oh, so good, so good. One thing about Aretha, her cover is always going to be better than the original. And so this album is just phenomenal, and I really think it's her best album the more that I think about it. And so if you wanted something from the 70s, you wanted that soul, that gospel, you have to listen to this album. I can't even explain how good it is. Britney Spears Blackout, I'm pretty sure the standard edition of this has, what, 13 songs? I think the deluxe is like 15, so it fits right in there for me. So Why Should I Be Sad is like one of my favorite Britney Spears songs of all time. I go for that song, and just, you know, shout out to Pharrell for doing that, and I think it's the bridge on the song that I really love. So yeah, she absolutely devoured. I also really enjoy underrated stuff like Toy Soldier is so much fun to listen to. Heaven on Earth is a really great jam. And so just the electropop that she has on this album is really fascinating to listen to. Piece of Me, I think, is one that grew on me. I think I thought it was cute before, but listening to this album more, I kind of appreciate it and the strength that it adds onto this album for sure. And what Britney did with this album, I gotta give her a 10. I gotta give her a 10. Sorry, one of the best albums of the 2000s, and one of the best albums of all time for that matter. There's a reason why everyone says that it's her best album. And, you know, the cherry on top of it is that this was released on my birthday. So Britney did what she had to do. Miseducational Lauryn Hill, I think this is like 16 songs, but not a bad song on this album, honestly. Some songs that I really liked off of this one particularly, I definitely have to give it to stuff like Everything Is Everything. That song is just so excellent. I love the piano and just the groove that it had to it more than anything. And then Nothing Even Matters featuring D'Angelo, the way that their voices go together and just the feel of the song can't be replicated, and one of the best like R&B neo-soul songs of like that decade and of all time in my opinion. And Every Ghetto, Every City, I just really liked the whole story and everything that she was saying on that song. It was just something that was really entertaining to listen to. Do Up That Thing, I mean, it's a classic for a reason. I still love it. I still enjoy it. Superstar, I really like that line in the song about her getting fired from Foot Locker. And I really like the song that she did with Mary J. Blige. They were definitely both eating vocally. So yeah, excellent album, excellent album. This is one I didn't really get at first, honestly. And I came back to it a few more times and I was like, you know, this is a great piece. littlesimz, Sometimes I Might Be Introvert. This is my album of the year whenever it was released. Woman featuring Cleo Sol. What a palate cleanser that is to listen to. I also really like Standing Ovation off of this album as well. How Did You Get Here is excellent. Point and Kill is a really good song too, but no skips on this album, no skips on this album. Rapping like her life depended on it. Songwriting on here is on point. I love the production and how grandiose that it is. Such a good album. Beyonce Renaissance, this is 16 songs, and yeah, there are a few skips. The first half of Pure Honey isn't really doing it for me. I've said that before, and I also don't really go for All Up in Your Mind. I like it live, but the studio is not for me. I skip Heat It only because Drake has a songwriter's credit on it, and so it's just because of that. But I listen to that occasionally. You know, Move really grew on me. I did not think I was going to go for that song, nor Thick, but, you know, I've become quite fond of them. Some of my favorite songs on this album, we definitely have to give it to stuff like America Has a Problem. That's been in my top 5 since this album came out. I still love it. And then I really love Virgo's Groove. Plastic Off the Sofa, of course, is an incredible record off of this album. And stuff like Alien Superstar, I'm That Girl, Cuff It. I mean, just what a highlight that this album was. Brandy, Full Moon. The only song that's a skip is a song that she did with Ray J, Die Without You, but he ruins pretty much everything, so it is what it is. But I mean, you have stuff like All in Me, all the transitions in that song. When You Touch Me is her best song with all the vocals, the production. Yeah, she was in her bag with that song in the studio. It's Not Worth It, what a jam he is, what a great gospel record off of this album. Full Moon, the song, is definitely a bop. What About Us was a great lead single. Yeah. Brandy, Dark Child, all the producers on this, absolutely cooked. One of the best albums of that year. Example of an album that's a little bit shorter. This is literally less than 10 songs. Janet Jackson's Control album. And so I really like this kind of version of the album as well, where it's 10 songs or less, because it really cuts down the filler a lot and it's very succinct. And so some of my favorite songs on this album: What Have You Done For Me Lately, a bop. Control, the song, oh, excellent, excellent, do it how to be done. And then Nasty is the hit that keeps on giving. The Pleasure Principle is probably my favorite song on this album. I always liked it, but in like the past year or two, I was like, this is the best song on the album. Like, I just had that epiphany. Oh, she ate. There's some really underrated stuff on here, like He Doesn't Even Know I'm Alive. When I Think of You is one that's grown on me. And I didn't really go for the song a whole lot, but now I can see it. I'm kind of shocked it's one of her number ones. I would not have guessed it would be a number one song for her. I don't know what it is about it. The song I don't really go for on this album, You Can Be Mine, it's just kind of like filler to me. And there might be one other skip on this album, but I mean, generally I thought that this album was pretty strong. 1986, and it was something that will kind of start the whole New Jack Swing movement. She did What Had to Be Done. Shout out to her, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis. Another album, less than 10 songs, Michael Jackson, Thriller. And so there's like, what, 8 songs on this album, and 6 of them were singles. And so there's not one bad song on this album. I'm sorry. Like, we had classics when you have a song like Billie Jean, Thriller, the song. The Girl Is Mine, I feel like, is overhated. Like, I love the song. I love Paul McCartney. He's one of my favorite musicians of all time. He did what needed to be done. Michael did what he needed to do. And the way that their voices sound together. It's a fun song. Doesn't take itself too seriously. Right in Paul McCartney's wheelhouse. And Paul McCartney actually did not write this song at all. Like, Michael wrote this, I think. And so, you know, shout out to him for being able to kind of distill down Paul McCartney's style into a song. And so they did a really great job with that song as well. And Baby Be Mine is probably my favorite song on this album. I think it's excellent. You also have The Lady in My Life, which is a really great way to close off this album. Human Nature, Beat It. I mean, so good. I forgot to talk about Wanna Be Starting Something. Hit after hit after hit. Many people try to make an album like this in their careers and they fail. This is a template for pretty much everyone. And yeah, what a great album. Victoriamonet, Jaguar. Yup. So good. No skips on this album. We Might Even Be Falling in Love. The interlude is so good. Jaguar, the song, absolutely incredible. And Moment, what a way to open up an album. Touch Me, yeah, came out in 2020, still sounds great. Fionaapple, When the Pond. There's no skips on this album for me, actually. And so this one has grown on me. It's a really good album. I don't think that it's her best album like a lot of people, but I get the appeal of this album the more I listen to it. Some of my favorite songs on here: Paperback, He Said It's All in Your Head, and I Said So's Everything, but He Didn't Get It. She absolutely ate. A Mistake, Fast As You Can. Like, this album feels like New York. She's from New York, and she was really able to kind of get the essence of that and throw it into this album. Very strong in terms of her songwriting. Great piano player. I like her vocal. Beyonce B-Day only has 10 songs, and I don't go for Get Me Bodied. As I said before, Resentment, it's okay, it doesn't really fit on the album, but besides that, hit after hit after hit. Deja Vu and Upgrade You with Jay-Z, exactly. Kitty Cat, one of Beyonce's best songs. Green Light, so much fun to listen to. Sugar Mama, the vocal performance on there alone. She did what had to be done. Freakum Dress, yeah, this is one of my favorite Beyonce albums. This is so much fun to listen to, and I just love the energy that it has. Everyone jokes about how loud this album is, but Beyonce went to the studio mad as hell, and she gave us a classic, one of the best albums of the 2000s. I don't care. Band on the Run, only 9 songs. Band on the Run, the song, incredible with all the different parts that it has. Bluebird is a gorgeous piece, especially this one performance that they did. I think they were supposed to go to Japan and they couldn't. And so I just love all the arrangements on there. I love the guitars and just the simplicity of it. Jet is something that is fun to listen to as well. 1985, one of Paul's best vocal performances. And so, yeah, if you really wanted something to kind of have that classic rock feel and moment, then definitely give this a shot. Paul McCartney is one of my favorite musicians of all time. And he, in terms of making the case for longer albums that I really like, first up we gotta talk about Janet Jackson, The Velvet Rope. Now this has a fair amount of interludes, and it is definitely a long listen. Like, if you're going to get into her, I would never recommend this as the first album to start with. I would say start with Control and then work your way up, and that's what I did, and it works great. And so some of my favorite songs off of this, though, definitely have to give it to stuff like What About. This is a song about domestic violence, and so just, you know, her candidness in that matter and her vocal delivery is just a really powerful song to listen to. And I Get Lonely, I think, is one of the best R&B songs to ever be written and recorded. It is super, super catchy. I love the music video and everything that's going on there. I also really enjoy stuff like Got Till It's Gone featuring Q-Chip. That was really a jam on this record for me. Special, I think, is really underrated on this album. I don't think that song gets what it deserves, but I think that it really encapsulates the album, you know, because that's what she said, you know, you can't really try to push away your past and forget about it, and that's something that you have to embrace and work through, and that was the point of this whole album. So I just really enjoyed that song, particularly on this album. And then we have some stuff like Together Again, which was a smash hit on this album and did exactly what had to be done. Go Deep is a lot of fun to listen to. So I think that this is really strong. I have no skips on it, honestly. The closest that I would get, or like a least favorite, is gonna probably be Tonight. I don't go for that song a whole lot, but it's not one that I would necessarily skip. But this is like top 2 albums of all time for me. The alternative R&B that she was doing on this album and the blueprint that she would set for many has to be talked about. And I really liked her vocals on this. I really liked the songwriting, very personal, very introspective about stuff that she dealt with in childhood and throughout life. And so I think that this is an amazing album. Like, it just blew my mind the first time that I heard it, and it's worth every minute. Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder. I mean, of course, how can I make a video talking about albums and not talk about Stevie Wonder? I mean, this is one of the greatest albums ever, and there's a lot of highlights. Black Man was a really great song. I Wish is amazing on here. You also have stuff like Pastime Paradise, Summer Soft is definitely one of my favorite records off of this album. Ordinary Pain and the twist that song has is something that's really fun to listen to. Have a Talk with God. Yeah. Oh my god. This album is so good. So good. No skips. No skips. Yeah, if you've never listened to this album, you have to. I'm sorry. Like, just reading off some of the songs makes me want to listen to it again. He was in his bag from a songwriting perspective, from a production standpoint, all the instrumentation that's going on all the way throughout there, and his vocals on this album are absolutely insane. There's also Isn't She Lovely on this record. I mean, come on. Oh, he ate. Paul McCartney Ram, this album is so good to me. Some of my favorite songs, Too Many People, I really like it. I'm pretty sure this is the first song to kind of open everything up. Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey is one of my favorite Paul McCartney songs of all time. All the different parts there. Backseat of My Car is just gorgeous. I love the vocals on there, how grandiose that it is. I also really love a song like Another Day and just the kind of simplicity in that, but I think that it's super catchy to listen to as well. So yeah, this is just such a good moment, and a lot of critics at the time hated the album, and now they've finally seen the light and be like, hey, the album was actually pretty good. You guys should have got it the first time, but I did. SZA, SOS. Yup. A lot of people felt like this was too long. Could she have trimmed a few tracks off this album? Absolutely. But most of the songs on this album are pretty good. I'm sorry, I think that this album is better than Control, which is a really hot take, apparently, but, you know, it is what it is. I mean, Gone Girl definitely reminds me of Control in the best way. I like that song. Ghost in the Machine featuring Phoebe Bridgers, and just the way that SZA was able to get into the alternative bag that she kind of explored in Control and take it to another level is so good. I really like Phoebe Bridgers' performance on that song particularly. And then, you know, we have the smash hit that is Kill Bill. We have the smash hit that is Snooze on there. You also have some really great stuff like Good Days, which has been released a few years before, but I think it fits really nicely on this album. I think it should have been the last song on the album because I like Forgiveless, but I think that Good Days would have just been a nice way to kind of wrap everything up succinctly, if you will. And then I also really enjoyed some stuff like Far. I feel like that's an underrated record on this album that doesn't get enough appreciation, in my opinion. Seek and Destroy, SOS the song, Love Language. Yeah, she ate. Last up, I'll say Taylor Swift Midnight's the Till Dawn edition. So I like most of the songs in this album. The ones that I don't really go for particularly, I hate Vigilante shit. It sounds like a Reputation reject. I don't go for a Reputation a whole lot in general. Antihero got annoying because she released a billion versions of the song, and I kind of just got tired of listening to it, maybe because she pushed it so hard. So I got tired of those two just off the bat. And so for the extra tracks, I would say Bigger Than the Whole Sky. It's a good song. I don't really listen to it a whole lot. Dear Reader, I never went up for that song. Karma remix with Ice Spice was actually horrible. Snow on the Beach, I like the album version because you can't really hear Lana Del Rey a whole lot. But, you know, if we go into the good songs on this album, there's plenty. I mean, Hits Different is like top 25 Taylor Swift songs of all time. That bridge and just what she was able to do and create pop perfection yet again, she ate. Maroon. yeah, her songwriting on there, the vocal delivery and her cadence there is really interesting to listen to. You're on Your Own Kid, the bridge there, and just all the different moments there. One of her best in terms of pure songwriting on there. Question's really fun to listen to. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a favorite, but that definitely is underrated. Bejeweled, I like that one a lot. Karma's my favorite song on this entire album. So much fun. That lead in back to the chorus that she does. The lyrics aren't the best, but, you know, it's just a great bop that we're going to put those to the side. Sweet Nothing is a really good song on this album too. There's a lot to like. Alicia Keys is an example of an artist who I feel like she always makes her albums a little bit too long. Like, I would say my favorite is probably the first album, but she always gets me on the back half of the album because she puts boring ballad after boring ballad. She got a song called Why Do I Feel So Sad? Because you put this boring ass song on the album. I would be sad too. I know why Cage Bird Sings or whatever that was called. Absolutely not. Like, that's where she kills me, is the back half of the album. Not to mention she hasn't made a good album since As I Am. And so that's my opinion there. I think that she makes some good music, but those are my opinions on the albums that I've heard. So to wrap up my thoughts on this, 13 to 15 songs is where it's going to be at for me most of the time. I think it's the perfect amount of time for you to get immersed in the album, to appreciate it enough, and then for it to end. And so I think that that is just the right amount of time to keep the listener engaged the whole time. Anything longer than that, it really depends on how good the songs are, because a lot of times when I listen to longer albums, I'm like, you could have definitely cut this down to 13 to 15 songs if you really wanted to and made a strong album. So I think that that's where it works in the benefit of having 13 to 16 songs. I get plenty of examples of that. I really can enjoy some albums that are 10 songs or less. We gave a few examples for that as well, like a Michael Jackson Thriller, like a Janet Jackson Control. And there are some long albums I enjoyed, such as a Beyonce Cowboy Carter, that I've mentioned, but 13 to 15 songs I really think is the best for an album, and I think that most artists should be doing that. And so there are albums where they're super short, like if an album's less than 30 minutes, it has to be a really good album, like Victoriamonet Jaguar. So there's all these different categories of albums, and I think once we get to a certain point where an album crosses over 2 hours, then I think that you should split that up into 2 albums, and that we should move on, because at a certain point I think that we're getting ridiculous, and I think that we can do better. I think sometimes artists don't know how to edit down their songs. Like Justin Timberlake is the perfect example of this, because 2020 Experience Part 1, his best album, but a lot of his songs could have ended after 4 minutes. Why do you keep extending the song for another 2-3 minutes and you're just riffing on the back end? I don't want to hear it. Shorten the song or make a radio edit of the song. Like, I don't know what's so hard about that. So there's a lot of things that go into play. It depends how much I like the artist and how much I like the album, because there's artists that I really like, but pretty much every album I listen to, there's a few songs that could be cut off the top, in my opinion. And so I love to know what you guys think of this down below in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What are your favorite shorter albums? What are your favorite longer albums? And let me know your thoughts on this, and let's continue that conversation down below.